Welcome. Let everything soften now. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the day fall away like a coat you no longer need to wear. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story about a tree. Not just any tree. A banyan, one of the old ones. The kind that's been standing for centuries, growing wider and deeper, sending roots down from its branches until it becomes not one tree but many, all connected, all breathing together. This story comes from South India, from a temple grove where the air smells of jasmine and incense, where the bells ring softly at dusk, and where time moves differently than it does in the world outside. It's a story about letting go, about learning to release what we thought we needed, about discovering that the things we hold on to most tightly are often the things weighing us down. You don't need to hold on to this story either. Just let it wash over you. Let it carry you gently towards sleep. If your mind wanders, that's fine. If sleep comes before the end, even better. This is a story about a wanderer and a tree, about roots and release, about the wisdom that comes when we finally stop running. Let your breath slow. Let your body settle. Let the temple grove welcome you in. The story begins now. There was a temple, small, old, built of red stone that had turned dark with age and rain. It sat at the edge of a village in Tamil Nadu, where the land was flat and green, where the rice paddies stretched out like mirrors reflecting the sky, and where the monsoons came heavy every year, turning the roads to rivers and the air to steam. The temple was dedicated to Shiva, or perhaps Vishnu, or perhaps some older deity whose name had been forgotten. It didn't matter. The villagers came regardless. They brought flowers. They lit oil lamps. They rang the bell at the entrance and bowed their heads and asked for what people always ask for: health, rain, children, peace. But the temple itself was not what made this place sacred. It was the tree. The banyan stood in the courtyard. It was impossible to say how old it was. Older than the temple, certainly. Older than the village, perhaps older than memory itself. Its trunk was thick, so thick that 10 men standing with arms outstretched could not circle it. Its bark was gray and rough, deeply furrowed, like the skin of some ancient animal. And from its branches, aerial roots hung down, dozens of them, hundreds reaching toward the earth, some already planted, some still dangling in the air like curtains of living wood. The canopy was vast. It covered the entire courtyard and spilled out beyond the temple walls, casting shade over half the village. In the heat of summer, people came to sit beneath it. In the monsoon, they sheltered there. And at night, when the air was cool and the stars came out, the tree stood silent, its leaves whispering secrets only the wind understood. No one cut the tree, no one harmed it. It was protected, revered, and in return, it gave what trees have always given: shade, shelter, beauty, breath, but also something else, something harder to name: a presence, a stillness, a feeling that if you sat beneath it long enough, if you were quiet enough, you might hear something, or remember something, or let something go. A man came to the temple one evening. He was a wanderer, a sadhu. You could tell by the way he walked, slow, deliberate, with nothing to carry but a small cloth bag and a wooden staff. His hair was long and matted. His skin was dark from years under the sun. He wore only a simple orange cloth wrapped around his waist, and his feet were bare, calloused, cracked from walking. He had been walking for years, not because he had somewhere to go, but because he didn't know how to stop. He had left his home when he was young, left his family, left his name. He had walked from village to village, temple to temple, river to mountain to desert to sea. He had meditated in caves. He had fasted in forests. He had chanted mantras until his voice gave out and sat in silence until the silence became unbearable. He was searching, For what? He didn't know. Enlightenment, perhaps. Peace, God, truth. Something that would make all the walking worthwhile. Something that would finally fill the emptiness he carried inside him like a stone in his chest. But he had not found it, and so he kept walking. He arrived at the temple just as the sun was setting. The sky was gold and pink, fading to deep violet at the edges. The villagers were finishing their evening prayers. The priest was closing the inner sanctum, locking the doors, extinguishing the lamps. The air smelled of camphor and marigolds. The wanderer stood at the entrance. He looked at the temple. He looked at the banyan tree, and something in him stopped. Not his body. His body was used to moving, but something deeper. Something inside. He walked into the courtyard. The ground was cool beneath his feet. The air was soft. The leaves of the banyan rustled gently, though there was no wind. He looked up. The tree was enormous, even more so up close. The branches twisted and turned in ways that seemed impossible, reaching out in every direction, some doubling back on themselves, some spiraling upward, some bending low enough to touch the ground. And the roots, the aerial roots, hung down like ropes, like fingers, like prayers made visible. The wanderer set down his bag. He leaned his staff against the wall, and he sat, not because he planned to, but because his legs simply folded beneath him. He sat with his back against the trunk. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he didn't think about where he would go next. He stayed. One night became two. Two became a week became a month. The villagers noticed. They brought him food, rice, lentils, chapati. He ate a little, not much. He didn't need much. He drank water from the well. He bathed in the small pond behind the temple. And he sat, mostly he sat, beneath the banyan, in the shade, in the silence. At first, his mind was restless. Thoughts came like birds, fast, loud, overlapping. Memories, regrets, plans that would never happen. Conversations he'd had years ago. Conversations he wished he'd had. The faces of people he'd left behind. He tried to meditate, to focus, to empty his mind the way the scriptures said. But the thoughts kept coming, so he stopped trying. He just sat and let the thoughts come and let them go. One evening, as the light was fading, he spoke, not to anyone, just aloud. "I've been walking for so long," he said quietly. The tree didn't answer. Of course it didn't. It was a tree, but the wanderer kept talking anyway. "I thought, if I walked far enough I'd find it. Whatever it is, peace, God, myself." He laughed softly, bitterly. "But I haven't. I'm just tired." The leaves rustled. The evening birds called. The temple bell rang once, faint and distant. "I don't even know what I'm holding on to anymore," he said. "But I can't let it go." He closed his eyes, and in the silence that followed, something shifted, not in the world. In him, days passed. The wanderer stopped talking. He stopped thinking so much. He just watched. He watched the way the light moved through the branches, the way the shadows grew long in the afternoon, the way the leaves turned silver when the moon rose. He watched the villagers come and go, the children playing, the old women sweeping the courtyard, the priest lighting the evening lamps. He watched the tree, the way it stood, patient, unmoving, rooted, and yet always growing, always changing, new roots reaching down, new branches reaching out, old leaves falling, new leaves unfurling. It held nothing, and yet it held everything. It didn't try to be anything other than what it was. And slowly, So slowly he didn't notice at first, the wanderer began to understand. One morning, he woke before dawn. The air was cool. The sky was still dark, but the stars were beginning to fade. The world was suspended in that moment between night and day, between sleep and waking. The wanderer sat up. He looked at the tree, and he saw it, really saw it, for the first time. It wasn't holding on to anything. It didn't cling to its leaves when they fell. It didn't chase the seasons. It didn't try to be anything other than what it was in that moment. It grew. It changed. It released. And it remained. The wanderer stood. He walked to the center of the courtyard. He looked up at the canopy, at the vast web of branches and roots and leaves all connected, all breathing together, and he whispered, "Teach me." The tree, of course, said nothing, but in the silence, the wanderer heard an answer, not in words, but in the rustling of the leaves, in the way the roots hung down, suspended, patient, waiting to touch the earth, in the way the trunk stood, scarred and weathered, and yet still standing. Let go. Not once, not as a single act, but constantly, every moment, every breath. Let go of the need to find. Let go of the need to be somewhere else. Let go of the past. Let go of the future. Let go even of the letting go. Just be here, now, rooted. The wanderer sat down again. But this time, something was different. He wasn't searching anymore. He wasn't waiting for anything. He was just there, and it was enough. The seasons changed. The monsoon came. The rain fell in sheets, drumming on the leaves, flooding the courtyard, turning the world to water. The wanderer stayed. He sat beneath the canopy, dry and sheltered, watching the rain. The summer came. The heat pressed down like a weight. The earth cracked. The air shimmered. The wanderer stayed. He sat in the shade, cool and still, watching the heat. The winter came, mild but cooler. The mornings were soft with mist. The evenings were clear and cold. The wanderer stayed. He sat wrapped in a thin shawl, watching the mist dissolve. And with each season, he let go a little more. He let go of the idea that he needed to be anywhere else. He let go of the belief that peace was something to be found. He let go of the weight he'd been carrying, the stone in his chest that he'd thought was part of him. And as he let go, he became lighter. Not happier exactly, but quieter, softer, more like the tree. One day, a young monk came to the temple. He was eager, bright-eyed, full of questions. He saw the wanderer sitting beneath the banyan and approached him. "Excuse me," the young monk said. "Are you a teacher?" The wanderer looked up. He smiled faintly. "No," he said. "Oh," the young monk looked disappointed. "I'm looking for someone who can teach me. I want to understand. I want to know the truth." The wanderer nodded slowly. "Then sit." The young monk hesitated. "Sit? That's all?" "That's all." The young monk frowned. "But for how long?" The wanderer looked up at the tree, at the branches, at the roots, at the leaves turning gold in the afternoon light. "Until you stop asking," he said. The young monk didn't understand, but he sat anyway. Days passed, then weeks. At first, he was restless. He asked questions. He wanted answers. He wanted the wanderer to teach him something. But the wanderer only pointed to the tree. "Watch," he said. So the young monk watched. He watched the leaves fall. He watched the roots grow. He watched the birds come and go. He watched the villagers pray and leave and return. And slowly, without realizing it, He stopped asking. He stopped searching. He just sat. And in the sitting, he found what he'd been looking for. Not an answer, but a stillness, a presence, a knowing that didn't need words. Years passed. The wanderer grew old. His hair turned white. His body became thin and fragile. But his eyes were clear. His heart was light. He still sat beneath the tree. Every day, morning and evening, sometimes all day, people came to see him. Not because he was a teacher, but because he was there, quiet, present, like the tree. They asked him questions sometimes. How do I find peace? Let go. How do I let go? Stop holding. How do I stop holding? The wanderer would smile. He would point to the tree, ask the banyan. One morning, the wanderer didn't wake. He had fallen asleep beneath the tree the night before, as he always did, his back against the trunk, his hands resting on his knees, his breath slow and soft. And in the night, his breath had simply stopped. The villagers found him at dawn. They wept, not from grief exactly, but from something else, something like gratitude, something like reverence. They wrapped his body in white cloth. They carried him to the river, and they let him go as he had taught them, as the tree had taught him. The banyan still stands. It grows wider every year. New roots touch the ground. New branches reach out. Old leaves fall, and new ones unfurl. The villagers still come. They still bring flowers. They still light lamps. They still sit in the shade and feel the presence that lingers there. Not the wanderer's presence. The trees, the same presence that taught him. The same stillness that held him. The same wisdom that asked nothing and gave everything. And sometimes, when the wind moves through the leaves, you can almost hear it. Not a voice, just a whisper. Let go, let go, let go. And so the story ends. Not with answers, not with achievement, just with release. With roots that reach down, with leaves that let go. With a tree that stands, patient and whole, asking nothing of you but presence. Let that presence hold you now. Let your body rest. Let your thoughts fall away like leaves. Let the night take what you no longer need to carry. There is nothing to hold on to, nothing to chase, nothing to find. You are already here. You are already enough. You are already home. Sleep now. Let the roots hold you. Let the branches shelter you. Let the leaves whisper you gently into dreams.